Hello and welcome back to Greenify. In this video, I'll be sharing about how to propagate Monstera plant. When we propagate plant, we actually multiply plants by dividing them. So we can get a lot of plants from one mother plant, and it's good for the mother plant because it boosts its growth and it gives it a good shape as well. Before we get on to step-by-step process of how to propagate Monstera plant, let's understand a little bit about the plant itself. This plant is called Monstera deliciosa. That's its scientific name, and it's commonly called as Monstera or fruit salad plant. It's called Monstera because of its big unusual leaves, and deliciosa because it bears sweet edible fruits in its native region, which is tropical forests of southern Mexico. Apart from this variety, then we have other varieties of Monstera like this one. So it's called Monstera adansonii and commonly called as Swiss cheese plants because of its leaves which look like Swiss cheese. So propagation for all the Monstera plants would be similar, and the easiest method for propagation is by taking stem cuttings. So let's get straight on to it. Ideal temperature for taking cuttings and transplanting them is 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, which in our region is mid-spring to summer. As you can see, my plant is growing too wide and bulky and out of proportion, so I decided to take two sets of cuttings, one from the right hand side and other from the left hand side to balance the plant. Now the next important step is to identify a node and aerial root on the plant. Node is an area on a stem from where buds develop into leaves, flowers or stem. With the help of sharp shears, snip the stem just below this node to include nodes, aerial root and leaves. It's important to have the stem cutting with the nodes because that's the place where high cellular activity and growth takes place. And if we just include stem and leaf without the node, then it's not going to grow into a plant. I have taken a bigger cutting and now I can see that there are 4 nodes or joints in it for taking further smaller cuttings. I'll now take smaller cutting from this place and will include the first node, leaf, aerial root, and will snip just below the second node, half an inch or 1 inch below the second node. Now this is one cutting and it includes a leaf, node and aerial root. For the next cutting, we'll again identify another node with the aerial root and leaves, and we'll take further cutting from this. So this is our second cutting. Now we can take 2 more cuttings because there are 2 nodes there with aerial roots and leaves. Now this one is a bit tricky because the space between the nodes or internodes is very small. So we will snip in such a manner that there is half an inch of stem above or below the node. We also need to use sharp and clean shears or knife, because if we are using blunt shears, then we have to apply more force and it can damage the plant tissues, and the shears need to be clean to avoid infection. So this is our third cutting with a leaf, node and aerial root, and this is our fourth and the last cutting, which consists of a node, 2 leaves and aerial root. Dip these stem cuttings in container of water with just enough water to cover the nodes and aerial roots. Just like the plant, we'll keep the cuttings safely in bright indirect light. You would have heard pros and cons of changing water, but I feel that there is a wisdom in changing water at least every week, because that can refresh oxygen in the water and that will not allow insects and larvae to breed. Cuttings have sufficient roots and ready to be transplanted. For transplanting, I've taken a clean plastic pot and I've put pebbles or stones on the bottom of the pot to cover the drainage holes. Now we are going to make potting mix for Monstera plant. So for that we have taken garden soil with our worm compost to add organic matter, and we are adding perlite, which is a natural ingredient. Perlite improves aeration and drainage in the potting mix. We'll add charcoal because it absorbs impurities, and Monstera really loves sweet soil. We'll add moss to the potting mix because when it decomposes, it adds to the organic matter content. Moss keeps the soil moist and the plant's aerial roots can cling to it. We'll mix all of these ingredients together. Link to a detailed video on how to create potting mixes is at the end of this video. So now we'll fill 3/4 of our pot with this potting mix. We'll now start placing the stem cuttings in our pot in such a way that the leaves are outwards, and we'll cover them with rest of the potting mix. After potting, we need to water the plant and keep the soil moist. A new leaf has started unfurling, which shows that the plant has settled in. So this is my plant after 60 days of propagation from this mother plant. I feel really excited with the success of my first set of cutting, and here is my second one. Do try it yourself and share your progress in comments below. I wish you good luck for your trials too.